I'm watching Corey Minor talk about his discussion with A.K. Richardson. Something that people need to realize that it seems to be getting confused back and forth, and I'm just a layman here, but no one is denying that the ones who will know not ever die, ume apothene, eiston aeona. No one denies that the sheep will never ever perish to the age to come, which is talking about the second death. The question is, what makes someone a sheep, and can you stop being a sheep? Nobody thinks the sheep will ever perish. And that's getting confused with bringing on the scholars and them saying, you can't make it no one's denying that the sheep will perish. Nobody thinks, see, this is the thing. In the context of the first century, Jesus is the teacher. He's the fullness of the revelation of Yahweh. And so some people are not coming to him because they don't recognize him, because they don't have the love of the Father in them, according to Jesus. And so they're not able to come in the way that God set it up. And John echoes this, if you don't have the Father, you don't have the Son. He who has the Son has the Father. Jesus says, there's a remnant that God foresaw. This is in Romans as well. The Israel within Israel that are being drawn to the Son because of the criteria that God set forth, the way that they would be able to come. They listened and learned. And so they recognize the Son because he comes in the name of the Father. And the ones that don't come, he says will come. If another one comes in his own name, him they will believe, but they don't believe the Son because they don't have the love of the Father in them. But nobody disagrees that if the ones who come to the Son, who are the sheep who hear his voice, will not ever perish, not a chance in the age to come. So something I like to point out is, if we want to just look at the syntax or the use of the language, they'll never, ever apothene, die. Double negation, not a chance. There is not a chance that the one living and believing in Jesus will ever, ever perish in the age to come. Something to point out, though, this double negation, wanting to misuse it. Notice the verse before that in John 11:25, before he says, my sheep will never, ever, what? Apothene? What does it say in the verse right before that? The one believing in me, even if he does apothene, he will live. Wait a minute. I thought the one who believes in you would never, ever apothene. But here it says, even if you do apothene, 599. Look at that. Look, the one believing in me, even if he does die, he will live. Right? So some will apothene, but they will be brought back to life. And then he says, but then the next sentence, and everyone living and believing in me could not ever, ever die. Apothene. So some people will die, but they will live. But the one believing in me will double negation, never, ever die. Wait a minute. That's exactly the opposite of what he just said. So they'll never die to the age to come, in the age to come. That's what's different about this verse as opposed to this one. But can we take out the statement, couldn't ever, ever perish? Only if you attach in the age to come. What are the implications of that point? Well, the first thing you might realize is that context is critical here. Is what it certainly should mean to all Christians is that there's not a chance that you will die as a sheep in the age to come, but you will die. Same word, apothene, or whatever that is. So it's context. The context matters if we think Jesus is not contradicting himself, because most people read that say you'll never die. You can't die if you're in Jesus. What do you mean? Like you won't cease to exist? Because it says here the same word, you will, some of this, the implication here is that the ones who believe, some of them will apotheny 599, but don't worry, he will live again. The next word. And then in the next phrase, a double negation, as if to say you couldn't ever die, but he just said some will die and they will live. So it matters that it's to the age to come, in the age to come. It's the second death. It's just like Matthew 10. Don't fear man who kills the body, but fear God who kills both soul and body in hell. They're both the same kind of death. Dying is dying. But the first death has a resurrection, right? So this is a different subject to the point here, but within the language itself, Jesus literally says some will apothene who believe in him, but they won't apotheny to the age to come. No one's denying. A.K. Richardson isn't denying the sheep. And here's why it matters regarding what makes you a sheep. Well, the sheep have attributes. Does it matter that you have attributes? Well, it says you'll know them by their fruit. Jesus says the ones who he lets into the kingdom have attributes. So what makes you a sheep? The fact that you declared it, and then you showing that the sheep can't lose their salvation. So because I declare myself a sheep, I'm a sheep. Or because I have the right theology, which affirms a proposition that no sheep can lose. No one believes a sheep can lose their salvation. What makes you a sheep? Well, if it's righteousness and justification by faith, it's what? It's in Christ that you are a sheep. What makes you in Christ? You'll know them by their fruits. Does that mean if you think you can lose your salvation, your works-based salvation? A lot of people say that. And those people would say to the people who say that, you think you're a sheep because you affirm a proposition, the doctrine that didn't exist for the first 1,000 years of Christianity. At the end of the day, what is the reality? Sheep have certain attributes according to Jesus. See, the way is sure. If you're going to say Jesus died for everybody and all you have to do, what? Who goes to hell then? Who doesn't get saved? The ones who didn't affirm a proposition? Or the ones that ate a living Jesus? And believing isn't affirming a proposition. It's, what does believe mean? Agreeing with the mob that says just affirm this proposition, raise your hand and close your eyes? Maybe. Starts there. It seems like it must start there, right? But does it end there? Well, if we look to Jesus, he tells us sheep have attributes. If you don't like that, take it up with Jesus.